Everybody, I am back with another comic book review. And this one is my first Fantastic Four comic that I'll be reviewing on the channel. And is written by Jim Lee, art by Brandon Choi. Is 13 issue art called Heroes Reborn. And it's kind of like a late 90s reboot of the Fantastic Four's origin story. So before we continue, please do me a huge favor. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. Follow me in the links in the description below. Let me know what you guys think of the Fantastic Four. And considering that, Marvel's finally introducing the Fantastic Four in the MCU, I wanted to make sure, I wanted to pick, I had to talk about, at least the origins of the Fantastic Four. But I didn't want to go all the way back to the early stuff. I want to at least try to get maybe, the 90s version of the origin story. And plus, as I mentioned many times before, in terms of art aesthetic, I like, art, comic book art from 80s getting into, there's some present day art that I really dig. But in all honesty, in terms of my absolute favorite art, there's in all aspects has always been hitting, no matter what book I'm typically picking up, on average, always knocks it out of the park for me, is from in the 80s getting into the mid 2000s. In terms of comic book art, that's almost always hits for me. Present day stuff, yeah, I mean, there's been a fair amount of good art illustration from comics that I really dig. But man, personally, 90s, early 2000s comic book art, I always love looking at. Is realistic, but not too hyper realistic, I don't know, that Batman Noel. That's hyper realistic. That Lee Bermejo type of style. This is just the right amount of good realism when it got a good the pencil art and everything like that. Is just the proportions are right. It's not too bulbousy and it's not too hyper realistic. It's just right. So this is a wonderful adventure. So we'll get right into it. So we begin introducing members of the Fantastic Four who are part of this project, headed by Reed Richards, called the Excelsior, which is supposed to send this rocket into space to study some interstellar anomaly. And it'll just better studying for the wide array of space, future space exploration. We see Ben Grimm as one of the pilots for this. And of course, Sue and Reed are already together. And of course, they bring in Johnny on board as also, pretty sure he's co-pilot or something like that. At least part of one of the pilots is, he has some knowledge and stuff. Johnny and Susan, I didn't really know this. I don't know if they retconned it, but at least in this particular story, they come from affluent family in terms of scientific kind of affluent kind of background, which why they get a good connection when getting the Baxter building later on into the story. And unlike way in the past when the Fantastic Four was introduced, they kind of had to switch up the relationship dynamic with Reed and Sue, because Reed seemed too like blasé or not, you know, very dutiful of a husband, and Susan seems too passive, of a wife in terms of their one of the most iconic relationships in comic book history. Here, they made sure they like, oh, this is like a legit relationship. He cares about her. He's not ignoring her over anything he's working on. No, he's like, when she's needed, or if someone pointed out like, she needs you, he immediately sets it all down to make sure she is tended to and comforted, and she's not so passive. She takes some active roles, but still maintain her wifely femininity. So it's a nice balance. So I like to make sure they, I love it when they made sure that they updated it, but they, still maintain that each of their respective roles that we know them for. So we meet up with Johnny Storm, typical Johnny, like, on the road, trying to like, just bug the heck out of Ben Grimm with a hot chick in the car, try to race him, but he gets, off-roaded by Ben Grimm. Slow and steady wins the race kind of situation. And I like the appearance of Ben Grimm's human form in this, because I don't know, it's like he always, from my memory, he's always depicted as, kind of like a, not a musclehead, but he's like well built dude, but not too cartoonishly about it. But like this is like, yeah, this is a good like, like salt of the earth, strong jaw type of, dude. But what I don't like here, and I, want to mention it here because like I'm just gonna I was gonna pass it over, but they like in a either in this issue or the next issue, they want to throw in like a flashback where Sue was bringing Ben on board to be a part of this experiment and exploration and things of that sort. And he was hesitant because he didn't want to, he was kind of salty because he had some feelings for Susan, but she was feeling Reed. So he kept that to himself. And I'm glad they just kind of brushed it off, because we'll establish Alicia Masters not too far from now. But I don't care for that personally. It's not because obviously this is not really a big deal, but I don't really care for that because why add that? You can just leave it the fact that he's not like a, I don't know what you can do. You're gonna add any other excuse like he's not like an astronaut, or he's not too big on getting out there in space, or maybe he's hesitant on something going wrong, something of that sort. Not including like, oh, he had like a thing for his best friend's girl. And Reed and Ben has always been like the best of friends, like since college or something like that. It's always been that kind of thing. So him having feelings for somebody's girl, that knowing these two got together, months before, way before you probably even, had any kind of established feelings. it's nonsense. It's like because if it was kind of made today, if somebody tried to put that kind of crap in today, that would, like, I won't say retcon, but that was kind of like usurp any kind of established history with these two friends. But you didn't need that, honestly. But they made their way to the field where this rocket is supposed to be launching. But their entire I was gonna call it experiment. I can't really figure out like a better word for this entire operation. We'll just call it an operation. This entire operation completely got hijacked, seemingly by Shield, with Wyatt Wingfoot as a point man on this. And the team doesn't know what the heck is going on. All of a sudden, Ben and Reed are locked up. One of their scientist co-workers gets murdered by Wingfoot, and Sue and Johnny gets hauled off to the brig as well, because they had to keep them around just to unlock everything, because since the storms have funded the project and everything like that, and they got the access to operate certain things, they need their biosignatures. But it turns out Wyatt Wingfoot is working for Dr. Doom to hijack this aircraft for use for Doom's own machinations. But thanks to some quick thinking by Johnny, utilizing his car's headlights to distract the agents, Sue and Johnny fought off them and then go to liberate Ben and Reed. So they want to stop the aircraft, because they've been loading up nukes on this thing. So they decide to suit up, go on a prototype aircraft, because the Excelsior, they call it the Excelsior, is the final version of the aircraft that has like the proper shielding and all the necessary components needed to properly be used out in space, while the prototype was like the first draft. But since it's technically complete and technically can be piloted in space, it doesn't have the necessary upgrades to sustain itself for too long, and can't handle certain barrage of, because it has shielding but is weak shielding, so it can't sustain for too long out in space. But they need to get up there and put a stop to that ship and knock it down. So they team up and they head out in space. Well, there they notice a wormhole opening and some mysterious figure coming through. As that wormhole open up, it sends out the cosmic rays, bombarding the prototype ship, which has weak shielding. And not only they managed to take down the Excelsior, but they get caught up in the cosmic rays. Oh, well, I didn't technically take down the Excelsior. It dropped the nukes, but I can't even figure out, I reread this, and it's like, I couldn't figure out, okay, what's the whole point of that? I was going to be very honest about it. I have no clue what the heck that was whole entire scheme was for. But the whole Excelsior thing is done. I mean, I'm pretty sure the nukes were like stopped in some kind of fashion. Uh, uh, but they get hit with the cosmic rays. Their aircraft crash lands on this remote island, where, of course, they start showing off different capabilities. Johnny with the flames, Reed with the stretchy powers, Sue with the invisible stuff, and then of course we get to see Ben transform, like mutate in real time into the Thing, which obviously he was horrified. It's kind of like body horror almost. But Sue and Ben gets captured by the Mole Man and his Moloids and his creatures underneath this island, which is weird because most times whenever dealing with like the Mole Man, he lives underground, yes, but it's underground of New York, like deep, deep underground of New York. But it's fine, whatever. You can say he moved or something. I don't know. Sue and Ben try to fight off the monsters, given enough time to get for Reed and Johnny to show up. And I love their dynamic. They, clearly they knew each other for a very long time, but it doesn't take long before they started utilizing, thanks to Reed, utilizing their capabilities in tandem with one another. But Sue also notices that the aircraft they was piloting had this kind of like particular engine that was, beginning to rupture because of the fall, but they have to get Reed in order to deal with that before it goes off and destroys the entire island and all the inhabitants on it. Well, because when I read this, I'm thinking like, okay, before they even knew like the Mole Man and the Moloids was here underneath this island, there was no other inhabitants on this island for what I've understood. It's like somewhere near the Bermuda Triangle or something like that. And it's like, okay, there's animal life. Sure, that sucks. But it'd be different if like you crash land not on an island but somewhere, that still has like people on there or something like that. Then yeah, it'd probably be crucial to shut down this thing. But it's like, yeah, sure, it will cause a massive explosion, destroying the entire island, but it's away from inhabitants, so it's not really much of a big deal. You just need to figure out a way to get off the freaking island. But I guess that's like why maybe the immediate danger, because they don't have no other way to get off the freaking island anyway. They do, but they do eventually get off the island, but at this moment in time, that was not their first priority. But if the whole Mole Man situation didn't happen, he's like, okay, this thing about to go off. We need to shut this down so that we can have time to concentrate on trying to get off the island without this bugging us. So yeah, so never mind. Anyway, so the team now together has to put a stop to the Mole Man and fight their way out, which they do. And by utilizing, Reed, coming up with a good idea to all three utilizing their gift to take this diamond-looking sphere. Sue used her invisibility powers to bend light to allow like sunlight to pierce through from the Earth's crust onto this thing. Johnny, takes off the Mole Man's, headgear so that way, because deep underground, it's sensitive to light, so blinds him, giving them time for them to make their necessary escape. But as soon as they leave to the Earth's surface and neutralize the engine so it won't erupt. They immediately get captured by shield agents. So while getting hauled away, we journey to Atlantis, where we see one of the most awesome pictures of Namor the Submariner in comic book history. It's one of the biggest like illustrations. Every time you look up Namor the Submariner, this is one of the first few images you will see because it's one of the most iconic depictions of Namor, honestly. So he is obviously the ruler of Atlantis in Marvel Comics, while Aquaman is the ruler of Atlantis in DC Comics. He is wallowing in despair because he lost a significant other. And then, of course, they also dealing with situation with, there are certain waters being polluted and hurting certain denizens of the ocean. And one of these soldiers named Krang, not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle version of Krang, but just an Atlantean Krang, who is vying for the throne. So he convinces Namor, like, we need to attack the surface world. They gone too far. Our people are dying, left and right. We need to do something. So Namor says, where is my super suit? And go off to rally his troops to attack the surface. So now we get to see the Shield helicarrier. I always like the 90s version, how they depict like the Shield helicarrier, whereas it's bulbous like this. Not like what you see typically in like Ultimate Marvel Comics or in like the movies. This one has always seemed more cool to me. Where it's like straight up like a comic book type of thing. Like you're reading a comic book here. Just fully embrace it. They tried to make their escape, but they didn't realize they are high up in the freaking air. So they get recaptured. And I do kind of like this, like, 90s little armaments that these shield agents wear. Not like you see if you read any kind of shield comics or just comics in general with shield depicted. They're just regular kind of agents with they're basically spies. They don't really need like all this like space gear basically, because I guess it's for the time. But I don't know, because you won't see this kind of thing in current Marvel comics, at least not to this specific level. I don't know. I'm feeling a little nostalgia of this era in comics, honestly, because it's part of the fun instead of the hyper realistic or grounded kind of stuff they try to insert, which, depending on the story you're telling, is fine. But I do love it. I do love it when they just embrace the comic booky world of the universe they're in. So that is it for this group of slides. So they meet not only Nick Fury. Look at this. It's like they won't show like, no matter the version, white or black version of Nick Fury, they won't have him wear nothing like this, like these space boots and stuff like that. This chrome looking space boots. Just have him just dressed like Samuel Jackson or whatever. But like I said, it was goofy, but half the fun. But not only they meet Nick Fury, but Countess von Elaine from Seinfeld, who you find out by the tail end of the arc, they have like a thing for with each other, which is a shame because I kind of wish they put that, since you brought in the Countess in the MCU, could establish her having like a thing with Nick Fury, but instead you establish she has like a thing with Ross from the Black Panther films. It's fine, but you know. I keep confusing the Countess with that Lady Hydra woman for some reason. I'm not sure why my brain keeps thinking like, oh, she's gonna be Lady Hydra secretly or something like that. But no, it's like the Countess is like a Shield member. But anyway, Nick needs Reed and the team's help dealing with Atlanteans coming to the surface and Namor declaring war. So they're like, okay, we can help. So the Fantastic Four, in their first legit government, government sanction, whatever, adventure, their first debut in taking on Namor, and I love it because in this 13 issue adventure, they're playing like the hits with the Fantastic Four, where they're gonna be meeting individuals that most of them were introduced in the Fantastic Four stories back in the day. We'll go through them. I didn't try to spoil them here and now, but we'll go through them one at a time. So Ben Grimm and Johnny was the first on the spot. They always the first one to jump into the fray or get things started because, while Reed and Sue want to talk things out or like have a dialogue, try to handle things peacefully or whatever, Ben and Johnny, most of the time, they just like, call this like jibber jabber and let's, get down to business, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Thing and Sue will never be an item. They will never last because they are so diametrically opposed from one another. But Ben tackles Namor into the water, which was like a stupid idea, but he doesn't know any better because Namor is easily one of the most powerful characters in Marvel history. Because not only he's half human, half Atlantean, but that human side of him, has the X gene in it. So he's got like human mutation, and Atlantean blood running through his system, and making him very powerful. He can fly in the air, swim, survive the deep depths of the ocean. And the superior strength is immense. He actually, and he got like longevity too, because his first introductions way back in like the 40s when he was helping Captain America defeat like Nazis back in the day. But Ben tried attacking him in the ocean, which he's even more powerful than he is on the surface. And he just mollywops Thing out of the ocean, and he eventually lands in like an art gallery where he meets Alicia Masters, and and he becomes smitten immediately. But then Namor eventually calls forth Giganto, which is one of the first big creatures that the Fantastic Four had dealt with in the past. Now, the 90s updated version. And I love this art design of this giant whale monster. So now Namor has this creature starting attacking, part of New York. But Nick eventually starts calling in some Avengers, which you only get Captain America and Thor in this. And of course, good idea calling in Captain America because he knows Namor. He's like, okay, we can settle things peacefully because like you guys fought together and you could easily consider yourself friends. So tell your friend to calm the heck down. And of course, I love it because Ben Grimm has Clobber in Time as his catchphrase. Namor has Imperious Rex. So, two members of the Avengers show up to deal with Namor. And of course, it's fun to see Namor and Thor, these two godly beings, just, go at it with each other, which, it's kind of like where Thor and Hulk or Hulk and the Thing go at it. It's just like a drawn out brawl that will just wreck a like a good chunk of the earth. I want to say not. I'm just saying like if it was like middle of the fields, like the landscape would be torn asunder from the fight. So Cat eventually, try to calm things down because he knows Namor, and deep down, he is a good person. He's an arrogant ass, but deep down, he's a good person. But then he's starting to feel, Namor's starting to feel sick, thinking it's part of like certain pollution that was going on in the ocean. But it was all a scheme spearheaded by Krang in order to take out Namor, because now he has to move things up a bit because things aren't going his way thanks to the Avengers. So now he's taking the bullhorn Namor had to control Giganto and take over with certain followers. But thanks to Reed taking him to like the nearest medical facility in order to cure him, Ben takes one of Fury's little mini jets to send Karina into, with like the that little bomb they had to deactivate on that island, having it inside in order to take down this freaking thing. Before we get further into it, I make sure I selected this panel or this particular slide because I miss the days where certain characters smoke cigars, and I get it. They want to like avoid promoting, like unknowingly promoting smoking cigarettes or cigars because young kids read these things. They don't want to get in their head like, oh, Ben Grimm, Wolverine, Nick Fury, they smoke cigars. They're cool and they're heroes, so like, why not? And sure, I get it. But I do miss, because if you bring that kind of stuff back today, I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be like an issue, Because I do miss where like Ben Grimm like smoked these fat cigars, or white Nick Fury did. I don't like black Nick Fury won't do it, but like Ben Grimm, Wolverine, smoke a fat cigar. Gambit, smoke a cigarette every once in a while. It's like if your kid's so easily susceptible to smoking, then I don't know what to tell you. You probably wasn't monitoring them properly. But by and large, outside of maybe vaping or hookahs, or even like smoking weed, people don't really smoke cigarettes like that unless you're above the age of 45. But I just miss the day, so I was like just had Ben Grimm just smoke a cigar. I never wanted to smoke, But I thought it was still pretty cool that, yes, propaganda or no, sometimes when you see your characters, like in a movie or a comic when they're smoking, yeah, psychologically it does make the character instantly cool. I'm sorry, that is the case. It happens. It's some correlation to it. Don't know why that is. It just is. It's just like an easy fix of a cool thing to make a person look. It's an easy fix, but it also helps that the characters are already cool from the ground up, minus the cigarette. But yeah, I just miss Ben Grimm's chewing on a freaking cigar. As a matter of fact, when I reviewed the first Fantastic Four film, and I don't think I mentioned it, where Ben Grimm, as he's being looked at by Reed to see the damage done with the mutation, he made a comment like, I used to smoke. And it was a nice little throwaway, Ben Grimm did smoke, but until that comics code thing kind of took that away a bit. But yeah, I missed that look. Anyway, Krang's machinations is completely foiled thanks to Ben Grimm flying that ship with that bomb on board inside the mouth of this creature to utterly destroy it. At the same time, Namor, feeling better, making an announcement to his troops to stand down and go back to the water. So that whole ordeal is done, and now everybody's praising the Fantastic Four. They're getting all these accolades. While at first, very typical X-Men fashion, they get trash thrown at them, get out of here, freak. They get that little bit of that, but unlike most times with the X-Men, here the Fantastic Four is hailed as heroes, so they get kind of sort of government sanctioned status where they get called upon when something goes down. They need their expertise. Blah 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 blah. They established the Baxter Building. They're getting all set up. So now they're getting the ball rolling in terms of as an established team. But they're not solely, called upon by the government. They gotta, they're freelance essentially. But if something big happens, they can call upon them. But it's not like they're so beholden to the government. But now, while they got some downtime, Ben is trying to find Alicia Masters again. You don't know where she worked. You literally fell into her place of business where she, selling her art gallery and stuff like that. But he is I love this art. We just him trying to just pouring out of that, car that he needs to be driven around most of the time until Reed finds vehicles or events vehicles for him to personally drive. He's just looking for Alicia, and he sees this woman who he thinks is Alicia, but it's not Alicia. She can actually see, just has similar red hair. But then she's a little flattered and is smitten with him, and it's really? I mean, sure, I get why Alicia is into Ben, but it's just a normal woman. It's like in Mallrats, how are you gonna make that work? Honestly, sure. Which I kind of like they established in the Fantastic Four movie. You see the internal organs of Ben Grimm is all rocky and everything like that. So everything from inside on out is, well, maybe not rocky, but there was something that I saw a long time ago when I looked it up where the skeleton structure of Ben Grimm is super dense, heavy and all this stuff. So it can be able to support his new body, and it's easily assumed that since his organs work similar how it's always been, just got a different kind of made of different material now, you will assume that his penis works, same way. So it's like, I don't know. You don't want to get too into the weeds about it, but it's like, okay, how do you make that work? But Reed and Sue call upon Johnny and Ben, let them know they're being asked to help out the Black Panther, who his first appearance is, was in a Fantastic Four story. And since the spacecraft crashed, there's a material that fell out of the Excelsior that landed, not in Wakanda. I don't think they kind of established like the invisible wall barrier keeping them hidden away, or maybe on the outskirts of Wakanda or something like that. But T'Challa asked for Reed and Sue's help and to study this fragment, thinking it's no more than just an exploration, nothing too crazy. The couple head off to assist T'Challa in this manner. And they realize that Wyatt Wingfoot and some other agents take the piece from the spacecraft with them, because Black Panther's involved mostly, because of this landing on his front doorstep, but also a couple of his Wakanda's getting murdered by this green creature. And we'll establish who that green creature were, but these three gets captured and taken to Latveria, where they meet up with Dr. Doom. And this is probably one of the most awesome displays of Dr. Doom's look ever. So good. And back at home, Wyatt Wingfoot, a bearded Wyatt Wingfoot, shows up at the doorstep of the Fantastic Four, which shocks Ben and Johnny, who think this is some kind of scam. But he tells them, like, no, I was kidnapped, and somebody who looked like me took my place, and I need you guys' help. So they eventually starts tracking down Reed and Seuss, because they and the Black Panther seemingly had gone missing after they tried to contact the Wakandans and see, like, okay, we haven't heard from them. Like, can we get a hold of them, because we need to talk to them? We haven't seen them in a minute after they went off to search the wreckage. So Reed fills in T'Challa and Sue about his history with Victor Von Doom, where they used to be classmates back in university, right along with Bruce Banner and Henry Pym and Tony Stark. And of course, these are one of the most smartest people, plus T'Challa, but I don't think they kind of really established at this point in time T'Challa being one of the most smartest people in Marvel Comics. But I digress. But it's funny to look back on these, because each one of these people go into different fields of study stemming from science, where one will study cosmic rays, the other shrinking, another engineering, another gamma radiation. all turning out in different ways that we see them today. It was kind of like, wow. Uh, you know, looking back on that, you can imagine how much it blew their minds, what they came to be. And of course, Doom, we know the backstory of Doom, he tried to create a machine to gain access to the Hell Dimension in order to rescue his Romani mother, who was a devil worshiper, in order to gain access to certain mystical abilities. But it was Mephisto who made a deal with her, and he kind of screwed her over. She's in hell now, and Doom garnered the knowledge of both science and magic in order to try to get into hell in order to rescue his mother, but it blew up in his face, leaving just one little scar. But then he went to, as Reed put it, because he doesn't know the full story, but we know that he went to Tibet. He finds these evil monks that gave him this particular, his first armor. Didn't want to wait until it cooled down, so he put on this metal face mask, and it further scarred his visage because he's super vain and everything like that. Eventually, I will cover like a Doctor Doom story, but I'm giving like the cliff notes. So, there you have it. And it turns out that the fallen thing that was found was the Silver Surfer, that figure that was coming out of that wormhole that was shooting out like cosmic radiation. Turns out that was the Silver Surfer, captured by White Wingfoot, or fake White Wingfoot, and Doctor Doom, to try to siphon off his amazing power so Doom can wield it for himself. Okay. That's it for this slide. They attempt to try to make their escape, but Reed and Sue end up getting captured. But the Black Panther manages to escape amidst the chaos, while Ben and Johnny and the real White Wingfoot shows up in order to help. And they team up with Black Panther to try to rescue Reed and Sue. And it turns out White Wingfoot is a Skrull. Not any Skrull. He is Clerk, one of my favorite Marvel villains, the Super Skrull. He infiltrated Earth not only to capture the Silver Surfer, but also to get the power for himself. But he had to work underneath Dr. Doom because he has the resources and the connections he needs to properly infiltrate and get everything set up for his own machinations. So now we got two of the biggest rogues of the Fantastic Four's gallery. So the Super Skrull, utilizing his powers, mimics the power set of the Fantastic Four to the deadliest of degrees. doesn't look like the Super Scroll that we're familiar with. This is like, he's getting used to the powers a bit, so he looks a little hulkingly, but they kind of slim him down in future iterations. But he wanted the power to take on not just potentially the heralds of Galactus, but hopefully Galactus himself, because Galactus is coming. That is like a looming threat of this entire arc. Galactus is making his way to Earth because whenever a herald shows up on a planet, like the Silver Surfer technically did when he flew by the planet, he was the harbinger of Earth being the next meal of Galactus, who has to survive off of the life force of a planet. Doesn't really matter if there was actually any humanoid beings on a particular planet. As long as it's a planet, it will still do the job. But it's best if it had sentient life on it, whether it's like animals or humanoids. But it doesn't really matter one way or the other for him. He's not really evil. He just exists. And in order to keep himself alive, he needs to still feed. And the only thing his immense power allows him to consume is something as big as a planet. And we get to see all of the heroes of Galactus here. Typically, I mean, it's fine for me because it's good to see like all the heroes of Galactus, but typically he's good with just the one. And that's typically he goes through them one at a time, because if Silver Surfer didn't work out, then he went to find like a new one, which is typically Terrax or Firelord. We get to see Frankie J, who turns out to be the herald of Galactus named Nova, not the space cop Nova, but just Nova. We get to see like a little cameo of Frankie J, who's a human girl who had a thing for Galactus, but too ignorant to understand. At least they kind of retcon that eventually. But early versions of Frankie, she is infatuated with Galactus, thinking he's super hot, and he is potentially in love with her, like she is with him, or at least infatuated. It's so stupid. I never cared for that part of her. They don't really use her all that often in the Marvel comics. I don't remember the last time we actually seen Frankie in anything. Every once in a while they throw her into something, but it was fun to see, like, at least the most known heroes of Galactus show up here. But Super Skrull wanted all this power so he can finally take his revenge on Galactus, because Galactus consumed the Skrull homeworld. Because the Skrulls had like a beef with the Kree alien race, but their biggest gripe would be with Galactus, because he devastated their homeworld and killed a lot of their people. It's still Skrulls around, and they kind of, the survivors kind of repopulated in different areas. But the team fighting off the Super Skrull, but his power is too immense for them to deal with. But Black Panther and Reed come up with an idea where if they get the Super Skrulls shoot out like some kind of cosmic blast, they plan on funneling it, which they do, back into the Silver Surfer, allowing him to regain some strength so he can properly fight off the Super Skrull, because he's the only one who can actually probably can do it. Which, in a resulting fight, caused the Castle Doom to start crumbling down and everybody making their escape. Doom went off to find like a backup to one of his backup laboratories to kind of um, pretty much collect himself and uh, find ways to try to uh, not what's the word? Yeah, I use the word collect himself, but it's just kind of like regroup. That's what the word I was looking for. Essentially, he's regrouping his efforts because he got completely hornswoggled by this imposter. And of course, the Silver Surfer, known as Norton Rad, sees that the Fantastic Four as friends because they went out their way to save him. So he would, he starts seeing them, or at least using them as like a benchmark of humanity, where it's like they went out of their way to help a complete stranger, somebody who, on any other circumstances, would have not. He cares, but like many other heroes, is in servitude to Galactus in order to prevent their own homeworld's destruction. So it's like, okay, he's starting to have misgivings about his servitude, and this world, Earth, is worth saving thanks to the people who went out their way to help me in my hour of need. And so he stops the Super Scroll, who of course will eventually show back, not in this arc, but future stories, prevent a calamity in the battle with the Super Scroll. But Doom sees that, I guess, the Hulk is showing up, not for the first time, but he sees that, this Bruce Banner, somebody I knew back in college, has this awesome power. I'm too busy looking out in space. I got immense power here on Earth that I could utilize to my benefit. So he has eyes on utilizing the Hulk for potential use. So that story for now is done. Now we get the introduction of Reed exploring the negative zone after some adventure they had, and Ben is like laid up in the hospital, healing a bit while Alicia is nursing him. The other three are exploring the negative zone for the first time, and gets accosted by Blastar, another Fantastic Four rogue, but is rescued by Uatu the Watcher, who rescues the Fantastic Three, but for some reason shows them, because every time we see something with Uatu the Watcher, he always watches different realities, giving certain heroes particular choices, and he ends up showing these three different universes where they made certain different choices in life. Like Reed is confronted by Wolverine after some situation that he's supposed to have helped with, but resulted in some kind of bigger situation. And you see, like, the She-Hulk is on the Fantastic Four team. And of course, at this point, Reed, who's an observer, he's not able to interact or talk or anything like that with these people. So he doesn't know who the X-Men are. He knows they're, metahumans, but at this point in time, he hasn't met the X-Men or any mutants as of yet. So he's a little befuddled. Then Johnny ends up witnessing him getting married to Elisa Masters, and it's not Ben Grimm, which he is like, confused about and a little bothered because like this is somebody Ben really is in love with, despite him teasing Ben and being a goofy. He legit cares, and it's like I would never do this. Like, why would I marry Alicia? This is Ben's girl. So he's completely confused. Walter pulls him out of that little particular what if story. Then Sue sees a properly old Agatha Harkness and not this revamped Catherine Hahn looking mother that we get in recent comics as of late. Thanks a lot, Kevin Feige, for that. Which, and she sees a son, Franklin Richards, which, of course, Agatha had babysat in most iterations in past Marvel comics. But here in this storyline, Sue seemingly was unable to have children. That's why she put more focus into her work. But she later does get pregnant and stuff like that. So all amounts to nothing at the end of the day. So she's a little like, at first, before she finds out she will later be pregnant, she is like hurt because like she sees like a life where she does have a kid and it kind of feels like it's torment for her. But it's just like, why bother showing them this? What is the real reason for this? Just to, see like a life they could live and then make certain choices? It's not the whole point. Uatu typically shows up, when he first shows up to the Fantastic Four, is to warn them about Galactus coming. And that's, one of the best, Fantastic Four comics is when they first are dealing with Uatu the Watcher and him warning them about the coming of Galactus. They didn't have all this extra stuff there. It's like straight to the point. So all this is like, why bother? And I've been meaning to like do like a video talking about like certain retcons made in Marvel Comics thanks to the MCU that really, grinds my gears a bit, because like they need to keep these things separate. Like, matter of fact, I really should make a story about this, because I think Agatha Harkness was, well, I thought the whole Miss Marvel retcon, her being like a mutant, now it's like mutant / inhuman, was the last straw. The whole Catherine Hahn making Agatha Harkness young because of Catherine Hahn, that part, I was like, okay, that is the last straw. I need to look up, like I do like a dive into like a list of changes Marvel Comics have made because of the MCU. I'm pretty sure there's got to be a list, and I'll go over the list and give you my gripes about that, because like those things should be separate entities. The MCU should do their own thing, and the comics should be doing their own thing, and they should not really be interfering with each other. Because like, oh, we don't want our readers or our viewers being confused and why they don't look the same. It's like, because they're not the freaking same. They don't need to be the freaking same. You can, sure, make Tony Stark and T'Challa look like, Robert Downey Jr. and Chadwick Boseman. That's one thing. And because they're still young enough to make that work, you can't really make that work necessarily with someone like Aunt May or Agatha Harkness, because they're old ladies. You can't, force them looking young so they can match up with Marissa Tomei and Catherine Hahn. It's just like, sorry, it doesn't work that way with that. They're established old ladies. Just keep it that way. Because you're making them young because they can be active in a particular given situation, whatever writer you want to do something with. And it's like, that grinds my gears. I'm sorry. There's some cases you can make where it's like, yeah, they can interweave here and there, and you can make certain things maybe work. But when you're overdoing it, it kind of like robs any type of agency where comic writers or the industry needed to go one way without Kevin Feige and others mandated, like, no, we got to go this way so it can align up what we're doing over here. And it's like, it's really annoying to me. Sorry, I got to get that off my chest. It was super annoying. So, like I said, Silver Surfer is having second thoughts about his servitude to Galactus and his I won't say faith, but his servitude and his honestly, I really love the look of Galactus in this. It's really good. But it's just like, his for lack of a better word, his faith in his servitude is wavering after his ordeal with the Fantastic Four. But honestly, it's like, you mean to tell me? I'm about to say, you mean to tell me that you never come across a planet that you never interacted with the beings on there and feeling bad and like they weren't good people or something? And this is the first time you interact with somebody who's, really good to the point where they helped you or something like that? Really? Or maybe he has, which has been the case with the Silver Surfer when he was working on the Galactus, he goes out of his way to find planets that doesn't have sentient life on there, so that way he can still serve his master, but he doesn't have to, his conscience can be clear at the same time. So now we're on a different little adventure where Reed meets up with Tony Stark at this art gallery where one of an archaeologist's expedition unearthed this particular tablet with writing similar to something Reed saw underneath the island where they interacted with the Mole Man for the first time. And this is where Johnny meets Frankie, but she's on a date with Tony Stark, but she's not really into him. And which is weird, when somebody breaks in to steal the tablet, he doesn't suit up in an Iron Man suit. It's like, you don't go anywhere without your freaking Iron Man suit. Like, what the hell, man? That's kind of lame. But this mysterious green-suited woman turns out to be Crystal from the Inhumans. Yeah, like I said, we playing the hits with the Fantastic Four here, where in this 13-issue arc, you get to see all these, famous and infamous characters that the Fantastic Four have interacted with, all truncated into a 13-issue arc, which is kind of cool. The Inhumans, which sadly the MCU has done a poor job trying to reestablish them, except for I thought it was pretty dope of them to allow Sam Raimi to bring in Black Bolt, the same actor from that crappy Inhumans show, to reprise his role in a proper depiction of Black Bolt. You thinking after that, okay, we can start bringing in. You want to make a full world of the Marvel universe, you gotta not only bring in the X-Men, but also still keep around the Inhumans. There wasn't a bad idea to bring in the Inhumans. What I did not like is the fact that they tried to, because it was around somewhere between 2008 through 2012 when they tried to, because the rights of the Fox rights with the X-Men and stuff, they could not utilize the mutants and the X-Men in the Marvel comics, which I still think was so dumb. That's why you should keep the freaking thing separate, because it doesn't really matter what the movies are doing, because you're doing your own thing. And that resulted in that the creator of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, being written as an Inhuman, even though the writer apparently wanted her to be an X-Men initially, but they didn't have the rights at the time, so they just turned around and made her an Inhuman. But personally, I think that was better anyway, because you really turn lemons into lemonade with that, where she could have been like the Jubilee of the Inhumans, where you can, she's so popular, you can utilize her to make the Inhumans more awesome by giving some good writers to come up with some good stories to utilize the Inhumans to make them popular. But it's all screwy. But here, don't know why they need to have Crystal dress up in this armor to that utilizes kind of psychic, psionic blast or something like that to, neutralize any potential threat while she's trying to collect this tablet for her people. It's like, why you need a suit when you have superpowers? And it's not like you should care if you trying to maintain your anonymity. You live in a secluded part of the world, Himalayas, but eventually on the moon, where the humans typically have like a base of operations. But it's just like, nobody know who the frick you are. Why you need like a green suit? And you already got superpowers. You don't need like a suit with abilities. Crystal literally control elements of the earth, or elements like fire, ice. Let me look this up. I know she used fire and ice, but I'm pretty sure she can control like many elements of the world. Mama Wiki. Yeah. She's an elementalist. She's pretty much like the Avatar, where she controls air, earth, water, which extends into ice, and pyrokinesis, electrokinesis, magnetic polarity, thermokinesis, elemental awareness, and elemental immunity. Only weakness is Crystal can sustain a certain elemental phenomenon for approximately 1 hour before her mind begins to tire. She can only create any number of effects in succession for about 45 minutes before mental fatigue impairs her performance. So, yeah, she's pretty much like the Avatar, in a sense. And it's like, you got this amazing power. Why you need a green suit? That part is a weird choice for me. But immediately, Johnny's kind of smitten when she says she didn't try to hurt nobody. She just needed to collect this for her people and whatnot. But then we see other members of the Inhumans show up that's related to her. Well, I quote unquote related because, Inhumans consider themselves like all, cousins and family and things of that sort. Like you see like Karnak and Gorgon show up. Gorgon has like hoof feet that cause like earthquakes, and when he like kind of stomps the ground. And Karnak is kind of like a martial artist, but has the capability to see like weak points in anything he sees, and he exploits that. But thinking that Johnny was about to hurt her, because she's supposed to be the point woman on this, they attack and cause him like, mortal wounds but they end up having to take him to their healing facilities in the Inhuman Citadel in the Himalayas. So now the other three FF members have to go and rescue him. But because of their defenses and the harsh weather, they end up crashing pretty much at the feet of their like kingdom, where they get rescued and taken to their capital. And you can see like Black Bolt, Medusa, and Triton as well. And I gotta say, because the first time I saw Medusa in anything related to Marvel, at the time, she was seemingly just like a meta-human who was like a thief and what have you, until she learned of her inhuman ancestry, and then she kind of turned over a new leaf. Yeah, because it's kind of like with similar to Hawkeye and Black Widow. They start off as like, kind of like bad guys, but turn over a new leaf because they wasn't, horrible people. They was essentially just thieves. Similar how like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver start off as bad guys, but then eventually, they also turn over to a new leaf. So, Marvel kind of set a precedent for that, One second. Yeah, she's part of like the Frightful Four at some point. Another, uh, 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 but, uh, yeah, it's like the Frightful Four is supposed to be like the like four particular rogues that she was a part of to combat the Fantastic Four. Yeah, it was Gorgon who kind of like helped her, you know, on the right path along with the Fantastic Four. So yeah, uh, little mini backstory there. They walk into the palace, who has statues of not only Galactus but their heralds as well, and they looked at them like some kind of deities of the Inhumans. And of course, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of backstory with all that, because how they know about the heralds and what they look like and what Galactus looked like. But brief rundown of the lore of the Inhumans. Back in early man, one of the Celestials kind of, manipulated. No, it wasn't the Celestials. I'm sorry. It was the Kree who took a subsection of humans, mucked with their DNA, and in order to kind of like foster like potential foot soldiers or allies to combat like any future threat towards the Kree, that later becomes the Inhumans down the line, thanks via the Terrigen mist that activates their hidden abilities at a certain point. So while throughout the ages, when certain people start messing around with each other and having children and children, it kind of that DNA strand gets passed along at a certain point and only is active because you won't know until the terrigen mist is inhaled. And if you're a regular person, it doesn't have any effect. But if you have the inhuman genome, then it activates and gives you any myriad of weird powers. And it might affect your appearance too at the same time. But if you're a mutant, it's actually poison to you because you have like a different, because their creation happens around the same time as the Kree kind of mess around with their a subhuman's DNA. I think it's a celestial that kind of mucked around with another subsection of humans as like an experiment, and that will later down the line result in mutations. So the mist is actually poison to anybody with a mutant gene. So a little fun little factoid there. They let them know that Johnny is fine. He's being nursed because he was hurt. We had the facilities necessary to make sure he was up on his feet again. But this is a secret area. We can't allow you to leave because we don't want anybody else on it, because we don't want any outsiders knowing where we are, because that might put our citizens in danger. Of course, Ben ain't trying to hear all that. He gets gung-ho and try to find where Johnny is. It results in like a fight between the three and a couple of the Inhumans. But then Johnny shows up, and of course, he's all in on with Crystal, because they date for a while until they had a falling out. She ends up with Quicksilver. They end up having a kid. Of course, that relationship doesn't pan out, but they co-parent. So there's a little factoid. I know so much about freaking Marvel at some point. It's like, God, I can't really, like, all the stuff that I absorbed over the years, growing up reading comics and watching Marvel via TV, either TV shows or movies, is there so much like I end up absorbing, and it's just like, it's like a Rolodex of comic book information in my brain. So he shows up because after this whole thing, when you try to flirt with Frankie, but he kind of get cucked by Tony Stark, so he kind of broods, and I think he's also affected by what the Watcher shows him actually getting married, because he's always been like a kind of like a playboy, but seeing like, oh wow, I obviously had this, maybe I should take dating a little bit seriously, because he never does. He comes close every once in a while. His penis always gets him into trouble, because he ends up banging one of Dr. Doom's henchwomen that he was intended to marry, a couple of years ago in a story, but they end up, Johnny and her end up having an affair, which, she ends up coming clean about on the altar in front of Dr. Doom, which causes, utter shock with not only the other members of Fantastic Four, who look at Johnny like a fucking idiot, but also, certain members of different royalties, like Black Panther is there, and he's utter stunned. Then, of course, Namor is there. He just bursting out laughing. He's having a grand old time. I still remember that. That was low-key kind of funny, but because he's watching this, like, he just sits back and is like, I was gonna let this play out because this is hilarious to me, because I don't even care about any of you, but I'm just glad I'm here to witness this, because I wouldn't believe it otherwise. But it's like, yeah, Johnny ends up getting his penis giving him trouble half the time, but you see that just his relationship drama is just kind of wild. But anyway, getting back to the story. So he shows up, he's all in, like, because he, he wants to take a relationship seriously. He finds some kind of kinship with Crystal, but it'd be kind of fun if that circles back around in Marvel Comics where they kind of reestablish a relationship. Because honestly, I don't know what the line of thinking was in this, but a few issues ago in the current Fantastic Four comic run, they on some kind of space exploration dealing with this other dimensional set of aliens that kind of look like centipedes or something with, humanoid heads. And Johnny ends up having like a relationship with one of these things. And I see on my Facebook feed when that became like a thing, and people in the comments, certain people in the comments like, love is love, and y'all just don't know, like, why y'all too concerned about this? Because it's fucking gross. Why are you, I don't know what the line of thinking was with the writers of that particular story was, but that was so dumb, so gross. It's like trying to make out with a xenomorph. Why? You just wanted to cause drama unnecessarily just to gain readers. Couldn't just have her be just another humanoid alien. What was so freaking hard about that? But I say all that to say it's just like it'd be kind of fun to just have Johnny, if you want to give him like a legit relationship, have him circle back around to either Frankie or Crystal, because they're probably the closest ones that he would have like a solid relationship with. Plus, both of them have fire abilities, either fully or partially, so they kind of would make sense. But I'm not sure how Johnny will feel about co-parenting, or at least being like a stepdad to Crystal. But hell, I don't know. See what the problem is, because he had no problem banging a centipede. So like whatever, or at least making out with one. It's so fucking stupid. And he got the nerve to get bummed out. And it's like nobody's, on the team is like, dude, he's a centipede. Like, it ain't gonna freaking work. It's so weird. Get over yourself. Of course, he gonna have him mope for another issue before he kind of like get over it eventually. But God, that was so fucking dumb. Anyway, the Inhumans let them know about they needed the tablet because there's strange creatures coming out near their citadel. These strange creatures infected by the Terrigen Mist that gives them their abilities and is harming their people. They're trying to study this. One of their scientists, who is the brother of Black Bolt, Maximus, went to go study, haven't came back out. So Reed says this tablet is actually on a map. They go and investigate, and it turns out, of course, Maximus the Mad, he's always like the biggest antagonist among the Inhumans, figures like, oh, the World Devourer is coming. We need my mission, because he's nuts. He's very intelligent, but because there's always a cost when it comes to being an Inhuman. There's some kind of, like with Medusa, can control her hair and does all kinds of things with it, but it's so big and massive, so you can't really have like a normal life with hair like that. And the same with like Black Bolt, he's got the most immense power of all, but he can't speak. There's always some kind of like drawback. Karnak, he sees the imperfections in a lot of things, so you can't really like move about like normal, because like you don't want to see the imperfect stuff everywhere you go. You want to just enjoy life a bit. So it's there's always some kind of drawback. Here, Maximus, known as Maximus the Mad, even though he has hyper intelligence, he's also batshit crazy. So he views as the World Devourer as like, okay, he wants us to be our like the survival of the fittest type of mentality. That's why I utilize the Terrigen Mist to elevate us to proper heights, proper evolution, and things of that sort. They tried to combat him and his little creature forces, but he ends up kidnapping Crystal in order to put her into the machine to pump her full of Terrigen Mist to dangerous levels, but uh, uh, Johnny and the others track him down, and we get to see an awesome display of Black Bolt's powers, shattering like the rock wall that it collapsed. So they get through, and finally take down Maximus, and Black Bolt has to destroy this machine because as a leader, he has to think of his people and any future threats. And if this thing lingers around, anybody can easily use this to cause more harm. So he has to he has to destroy this thing. And as things, they of course allowed the Fantastic Four to leave because like they can't hold them hostage, because why would you even cause like a confrontation? Maybe because they didn't know him like that, but it's like you could do your research, and these guys are heroes, and it's like you can have them promise not to tell them about their hidden little city. Similar how they wanted to spill the beans about Wakanda's hidden little city, but it's forced drama. So Johnny is forced to say his goodbyes to Crystal because he's still recovering from her ordeal. But it's like, you mean to tell me you can't make a visit? But Lockjaw, who's not like a big dog, they say he's a big dog, but he looks like he's like a normal sized dog. But of course, this is like in this particular story. All other iterations, he's the size that we always expect Lockjaw to look like. So I don't like it, but it's like a one-off thing, so it's not like something that's gonna bother me long run. But I imagine when it came out at the time, people was a little like bewildered, like, why is he like a size of a normal dog? But they got orderlies taking away, at least inhuman orderlies taking away Maximus, who's shouting everybody else thinking he's crazy. He is, but he's like, oh, it's like Galactus is coming, or the Devourer is coming. He's coming. It's kind of like, whereas like in most iterations of, well, in the MCU, they have like Hulk crash land into the Sanctum Sanctorum saying Thanos is coming. In the comics, it's the Silver Surfer crash lands saying like Thanos is coming. So it's kind of like that same beat, which now I'm thinking about, I think at some point next year, I wanted to do this year, but I don't have any kind of room for it. But next year, I need to start doing some reviewing the Avengers films, because I covered pretty much all the movies and TV shows from phase 1, 2, and 3, and some stuff in phase, I'm pretty sure a lot of stuff in phase 4 and 5 at this point. With the Agatha Harkness show, I'll be reviewing that next week once that finally wraps up, so I can do my full-on spoiler review and my thoughts on that, because I actually have to written down notes about this particular thing. So yeah, and I think I should start going back into my tier listing to add in certain stuff that I've seen with the MCU, but it's been pretty light, so maybe not, because I don't think like I need to go back to that, at least not yet. But anyway, so Devourer is coming. He's looming. He's a looming threat. And the Silver Surfer makes his way back to Earth because he's like, okay, I gotta warn them, because I'm not cool with this, this planet being consumed, because I'm internally grateful for what, the people there had done for me. This is his turning point here. Sue, at this point, is pregnant. Lets Reed know. He's kind of like a gasp, but he's excited. But she's a little concerned. But then Terrax, one of the heralds of Galactus, shows up somehow before Silver Surfer and is preparing this plan for consumption. Of course, Ben, Sue, and Rhea are there at the park while Ben is, modeling for Alicia, and the other two are having like a picnic. Johnny's back at home kind of working off his aggression after having to be forced to leave Crystal home, and he wants to be with her, so he's kind of working off his aggression in like their version of the danger room. So the three are battling Terrax, who's giving them the run for their money given his awesome power. And of course, Reed is like, it's like his mind is kind of split right now, knowing that his wife is pregnant. He's really concerned about her safety at this point. So he, they're getting caught with their pants down at this point. Okay. But eventually, thanks to seeing it on the news, Johnny eventually shows up. Got the last slide here. So it's all been culminating here. The arrival of Galactus. And the heralds are preparing Earth for the next consumption. One second. Okay. So, the Fantastic Four take on Terrax, who's about as powerful as the Silver Surfer. They all the heroes have their own unique gimmick. Like Terrax here can manipulate the Earth to the same degrees, more so than somebody like Crystal could ever hope to do, thanks to the power of Cosmic. So this guy's giving them a run for their money. But then eventually the other heralds, Plasma and Firelord, show up. Each one with their own unique gifts. And of course, these two are a little bit more like, almost got the same mindset as Silver Surfer, and not really, aggressors. They got a job to do. They don't actively hurt anybody unless provoked. But Terrax has always been like some kind of villain where, in some capacity, where he's just like, I guess, come from a race where he's like, all about, they're, not villains, but they're definitely aggressive. So he's eager to, dispatch anybody, and probably more eager of the heralds to find any kind of planet, no matter if there's like a sentient life on there or not. It's like, he doesn't give a crap. But right when he's about to strike the fatal blow to Susan, Silver Surfer shows up in a nick of time and takes on Terex to stop him from wreaking any further havoc. But then they get the call from Galactus to arrive so that way they can make their final preparations. So they kind of blast off. That's when the Countess von Elaine Bennis shows up with Dum Dum Dugan to get the Fantastic Four and inform them, along with the Avengers, of this impending threat coming from close to their in their close to in their solar system, on their way to the planet. And of course, you know, Silver Surfer, despite him trying to like get like Galactus to reconsider using Earth as the next source of his meal, is falling on deaf ears. But he knows he has to do something. He eventually, of course, like go against Galactus and try to help the people of Earth. So the Avengers, not the X-Men, but the Avengers, Fantastic Four, and Black Panther are split up, in order to go to respective spots on the planet where three of the heroes are setting up these converters to make the planet break down to allow for consumption. So they go to the respective spots where the Fantastic Four, had their little adventures, like the island where the Moon Man is, because I guess for some reason there was like cosmic hotspots, I guess. But they go to Himalayas, close by where the Inhumans are, and then of course New York. And even get Namor on board. So they got to try to shut that down to hopefully stop Galactus. And of course, Reed is also trying to come up with his ultimate nullifier that we know that he has, which back in the early comics, when they first get in contact with Galactus, and that was Reed's biggest weapon to threaten Galactus with, because it nullifies anything out of existence completely and irrevocably. And that was one of the rare things that Galactus actually fears. And that always kept Galactus away from Earth. So of course he comes up with that. So Fire Lore is at the near the Inhuman Citadel, where Johnny and the Inhumans try to stop his machine that he's setting up, and stop him in the process. Plasma is on the island setting up her little machine, where Captain America and the Avengers are dealing with that. And then of course Wanda, without any kind of problem, hand waves like the Mole Man and his Moloids away, just keep them out. It's like keep them out of their way. But and of course there's one set up in New York that Silver Surfer tries to help deal with. And unfortunately, while trying to neutralize these machines, it caused like a massive explosion because it gathered so much of this energy. It caused the death of the Inhumans along with Johnny Storm. Don't know about Farlow. I'm pretty sure he got consumed by it too. Nick Fury tried to use all the weapons he has on board the helicarrier to get Galactus' attention, because he's trying to convert everything uh, so he can prepare for the consumption. But he gets everybody, including Reed, off board. But Countess von Elaine Bennis stays behind. Mentions about like, I really wish we had kids or something like that. They go down with the ship and collides it with Galactus, giving the heroes some time to try to come up with a way to put a stop to all this. They have this kind of backpack version of the Ultimate Nullifier, which Ben wields to try to hold on to the boot of Galactus, trying to hold him down, but his power is so immense, he kind of like push him back, and it causes like a feedback. So instead of neutralizing Galactus' powers, at least temporarily, it neutralizes Ben's powers, which allows Terrax, while Black Panther try to help, which kind of sucks and makes Black Panther look like a punk in this. Terrax uses powers to grab hold, of Black Panther using the Earth and slamming him into Ben, killing them both. So this ends kind of sadistically, honestly. But then, of course, Dr. Doom shows up with this siphon suit that seemingly he got a particular piece from possibly a future version of him to implement into his suit. It's like a chrono gizmo thing. So he shows up trying to harness the power of both. He ends up trying to steal. He steals the powers of both the Silver Surfer and Terrax in order to hopefully get enough power to combat the Galactus, but it's futile. And of course, he refused to help Reed, dooming the entire planet. The whole thing goes up. And of course, the adventure continues in like an Avengers comic book run. But of course, obviously, they, because I think the whole Chrono thing, I think Dr. Doom will figure out a way to like go back in time and fix all that stuff. I don't know. I tried looking it up, trying to see what's up, but I'm pretty sure it's not in a Fantastic Four story. It's all continues probably in like an Avengers storyline to see like, okay, how that resolve. But yeah, it kind of ends on a kind of like a sour note. But all in all, it's still, up until this point, it was all, at least this particular issue, the 13th one, it all was a pretty solid story, aside from a few complaints that I mentioned throughout me covering the summary of this arc. It's cool to see like they kind of truncate all the crucial interactions with certain heroes that the Fantastic Four is known to have interacted with, and like Black Panther and Namor and their particular debuts in Fantastic Four storylines. They kind of updated it and brought him into this little 13th issue arc with an overlooming Galactus event. Because like this is like playing the hits of Fantastic Four. Galactus is coming. Obviously, Fantastic Four meets Uatu for the first time, even though here he doesn't, like, maybe it happens in an Avengers story, but Uatu interferes for the first time when he's supposed to only watch in order to save this reality from Galactus. And it's like, dude, where are you? But maybe, like I said, it's updated so they kind of do something different with them. But he hasn't been seen since that whole situation with the Negative Zone. But yeah, I mean, like, I really dig the art. Love like the introduction with the Inhumans and Black Panther, all that stuff. while it all making sense in the overarching narrative where it feeds into like the major plot. It isn't just one-off situations. They all have some kind of interconnectivity going on, which I really dug, and I thought that was very cool. But yeah, that was Fantastic Four Heroes Reborn, the updated origin story of the Fantastic Four, basically. At least for the 90s version. But yeah, ends on a sour note. Don't really care for those. But yeah, that is it. The next comic that I'll be reviewing just in time for Halloween will be a Hellboy comic. It's just 5 issues, so I want to I can get through that pretty quickly. So I'll get that out in the next, probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, definitely before Thursday. So I'll have that out ready to review and talk about. Matter of fact, I'm probably gonna wait until probably Wednesday, right after work. I'll have the review of Agatha Harkness ready, because I'm pretty sure it's just gonna be a one and done season. Because I got a lot to say about that. Hellboy, and then a couple other things. Oh, and then 2 more movie reviews before the month of October resolves. So I want to try to get all those out definitely before Thursday next week. So anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think. What was your favorite Fantastic Four story? Which hero did the Fantastic Four meet up with the first time that you always thought was your favorite? Because honestly, their first interaction with Black Panther and the Inhumans, at least back in the day, I ain't just referring to this, talking about back in the day, was always the most interesting one, because Black Panther trying to test out his skills to feel like he's worthy of the mantle of Black Panther, taking on Marvel's first family, considering how powerful they are. He's able to, overcome them to prove his mettle. I thought that was so good. Anyway, as a matter of fact, it's been a minute since I did a Black Panther comic book review, but maybe for Black History Month next year, I'll cover it. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit. Yeah. Because I want to start reacting to the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 in a bit. So anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Don't forget to leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Follow me in the links in the description below. And I'll see you all soon. Peace.